Hello and welcome back to the Daily Run with Za. My name is Eliza Miron, your host of the Daily Run. And today we have Stacey Marsh, who is an active run streaker. She's at 989 days, so just coming up 11 days away from her comma, which means hitting her 1,000th day of running every single day. So thanks for joining us, Stacey.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, to start, if you want to tell us just maybe a little bit about yourself, not including running, who you are and where you're from.
Yeah. So, Stacey Marsh, I live in Indiana. Like you said, I've been running with this streak for 989 days, so since August of 2018. I work full-time. Over the past couple of years, I've finished my master's degree in strategic communications, and I'm a mom of two boys who keep me pretty busy. Outside of running and working and taking care of kids and household stuff, we go camping a lot, and I just kind of like to spend as much time as I can outdoors.
Nice. And when did you start getting into running? Was it before your run streak? And how did that happen for you?
So I would say that I did not consider myself a runner by any means, actually, until I was like maybe a year into my run streak. So I always did try to run. So I think, I first started to run my freshman year in high school. A friend of mine was on the cross country team, and they needed one extra body essentially to make a varsity team so that they could go to state for her to compete as an individual. And she was like, please do this. And I was like, okay, sure. It really wasn't that great of an experience as someone who was not a runner, not naturally good at it or conditioned for it. And then also, running with a varsity team, I pretty much always finished like dead last, and it was pretty miserable, but she did get to go to state, which was the win for her. And then, after that, I would say I would pick up running here and there, but never to run, always with like the idea that I needed some cardio to help me lose a little bit of weight or to get fit. And so I never really committed to it, or became, I would say, even what I'm going to use air quotes, good at it. It was always just like this. I want to lose a little bit of weight, so I'm going to go for a jog. And then, I would stop for whatever reason. So I never really got into running until I had this active streak that I'm in now.
And then how did that run streak start for you?
For the exact same reason. I wanted to lose weight. So I was, like 5 years post baby, post my second child. And I knew that it wasn't baby weight anymore, right? Like it was just climbing. And I just didn't feel good. And so I wanted to commit to not only being more active through the run streak, but also, eating better and making some other lifestyle changes. But my goal was really to lose weight.
And did you end up losing weight?
Yeah. So I lost around 50 pounds.
Oh, wow.
From when I started that journey, which was actually a little bit before I started my run streak. Through, I've maintained it at this point. It fluctuates a little bit. I'm not as strict, but I think the biggest thing or the most interesting thing is that, I started that process like 3 years ago, and the run streak 100% helped me stay committed and lose the pounds. But at this point, it's helped me also maintain, and then also kind of shift that mindset away from like, how much do I weigh? What does the scale say? To like, how do I feel today? Am I putting things into my body that will make me feel good or make me feel not good? And really it's really neat to see that it's like less about the number and more about just, that sense of I feel healthy day in and day out. And I want to be stronger day in and day out.
And what did that, I guess your running look like when you first started in, I guess summer of 2018, were you kind of just like getting back into running in some ways? Was it more of a run walk? And did you have any sort of races, like a 5K or anything you're aiming towards, or a training plan? Like, what did that kind of look like?
It was not pretty.
Yeah.
So I started my weight loss commitment before my run streak. And that was, like eating better and then being more active. I could not run a mile. So prior to my run streak, I kind of had to work up to where I was able to run a consistent mile. And then August 19th is when I was like, okay, I ran my full mile. Now I'm going to run a mile every day after that. Like I said, it wasn't pretty. Like, it was me on the treadmill, either in the garage or in the house, pushing through a mile at like a, 5.0 and thinking I was going to die, finishing the mile laying on the ground, still thinking I was going to die, but just, sticking with it over time. And to be honest with you, like, it wasn't until almost 3 months in that I really even started to break like a 2-mile range. And so, again, like, I was not a runner. I didn't consider myself a runner before this. But it was really neat then, like, to just notice the difference as I continued around like that 3-month mark, where I was like, oh, I can run more than 2 miles, or I can run more than 3 miles. And then I in terms of like training, I wasn't training for anything. I was, like I said, like strictly there to lose the weight. But it was neat to see just how my endurance changed as I stuck with it. And then I started to think like, oh, if I can run 2 or 3 miles, or I can do this, like, I'm running a 5K every week, like maybe I should sign up for a 5K race. So I did. My first race was, like after 200 days, that's, of running, where I signed up to run a 5K for the first time.
Nice. Well, yeah, I think that's really great, because a lot of times, people think maybe a run streak is just about, competition or the competitive runners, or, in my philosophy that I've developed over the years, my dad and I, he started his run streak 3 years after me. So he's at 15 years, and we coined it the measly mile. So not like there's anything measly about it, but it's the fact, it's almost like mentally you're saying, okay, it's just 1 mile, you can get through the 15, the 20 minutes, whatever, how long it takes you to get in that mile. But it's the fact, that you do it every day. So I feel like, your weight loss journey, I'm sure you had a plateau at some point, but the fact that, you had that commitment to really not only get in the run every day, but have that time to, focus on yourself and kind of get back to the roots of, this is what I'm doing every day. Like sometimes maybe people go on a journey, fitness journey, and they get through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Friday night comes, Saturday night, and, then Monday comes along. It's like you have to redevelop those habits. So, the fact that you committed to every day, I'm sure you also, like you were saying, changed your diet, but in some ways it's not surprising, that, you lost weight just by that commitment. So
yeah, it's a mental game, right? Like consistency is, it's not hard, but it's hard. And so I think the run streak gave me, like you said, just that consistency to keep pushing and not lose sight of what my goals were.
And then did you have any, maybe struggles early on, or, how did you overcome, I guess, that head trash, that, certain patterns of thought that existed before, as far as, I'm too tired today, or like, I worked too hard yesterday, why would I run today? And kind of getting into that routine. How did that, kind of look like for you kind of in those first 3 months?
Yeah. So I would say, one thing that helped me tremendously is I changed my diet so much and tracked my food, in the beginning, that I was like just shedding pounds, which I think really helped keep me motivated. So I definitely think that kept me in the right place of like, okay, I'm going to keep going forward, especially for those first like 4 or 5 months with, running and eating well or healthier choices. So I think that helped tremendously. When I did start my run streak, I was actually pretty busy in life, which was also a weird time to take on something extra. But I was traveling a lot for work, for the role that I was in, and I was finishing up my master's degree. But I just felt like there's never going to be a good time. And so those things made it more challenging, but they didn't make it impossible, right? As long as I stayed true to my commitment, then I could get that mile in. Like you said, like I haven't heard the muesli mile, but that's it. Like, it's like, if I can't take 15 minutes out of my day to do this, like there's something else wrong, right?
Yeah.
So I think that those types of like thoughts or views on what the mile was definitely helped me overcome like any scheduling challenges or just feeling tired. I think because I lost so much weight and because I was making better choices in what I was putting into my body, I felt better too, which didn't hurt by any means with my ability to keep going through the run streak. I did not buy shoes, like good shoes, until I don't even know, like 4 months in. And I did have I had shin splits, and I wasn't wearing shoes that were good. There was who knows how many miles, or how old they were. So I will say that like once I got new shoes, I realized how big of a difference that made. And then now I'm like, oh, I need new shoes. I know like how much mileage I can typically get out of a pair before I need to transition into a different set.
Yeah, I think that's an important lesson to learn for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And how was, I guess your sons were what, 5 and how old were
11. Yeah.
5 and 11?
I think that they were good. 10, 11, right around that age. But, I think, because I really only ran, or mostly ran like inside on the treadmill, or at that time, like I was either traveling for work or working from home, I was able to do my run like when they were at school or after they went to bed or when I was out of town. Like it didn't impact them so much. So I would say that they didn't notice it so much then, or even realize that it was happening.
Yeah.
I think now, because I like to do longer runs, or I like to, go run races, or, we're on vacation and they realize like, oh, Mom's going to go run. Yeah. See you in an hour. Like now I think they notice it more often, but at the same time, I think now it's just like, it's normal, right? Like they expect it, they know it's going to happen. It doesn't, it's not something that they like question or think is negotiable at this point.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. But I think, you had a really good point of saying, there's never going to be a good time. So there's, I feel like a lot of times we make excuses for ourselves, especially when we're super busy and thinking we have so much to do that, how could we possibly fit in something else like, running for 10 minutes. So, I found that, when I'm more busy, it's almost easier to fit in the run. It's when, you have, unless, I get it done first thing in the morning, otherwise you have the ability to procrastinate and, and I mean, obviously I've been running every single day for quite some time. So, there's always a way to get it in, but it's like the days that there's nothing going on, it's almost easier to, kind of procrastinate it. But, it's like, people trying to find that time. It's just about making that time and, not just committing to running, but committing to yourself. So.
Yep. I agree. It's definitely, there's some days it takes some planning. But I don't think it's impossible. Like I said, I always come back to like, if I can't find 10 to 15 minutes in my day for me to step away, like I need to take a step back and reevaluate the bigger picture anyways. So luckily we haven't come to that.
Yeah. And I'm sure your husband was supported at the beginning. of you starting to run, and I don't know if he runs as well, but
no, I always say he's the laziest hard worker that I know.
That's funny.
So he works a ton. He travels for work. So again, like I feel like my run streak hasn't ever really affected him. Like similarly to my kids, like I just manage getting it done the way that I need to, right? Mm-hmm. And so for him, like now, again, I feel like more recently, I'm like, okay, I'm, like you happen to be home and I'm running a race. I'm signed up for it. I'll see you in a few hours, that kind of thing. But I mean, I think it's been similarly to the way that my kids have experienced it. It hasn't really impacted him much. Mm-hmm. And he's not a runner and he doesn't understand it, but he's not discouraging by any means. Yeah. He just is like, okay, I guess if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. So what is, and then how did your run kind of, cause you said now that you're training for races. So your first 5K was how many months in, and now would you say you kind of have that racing bug? Are you now training for races, and how has your run kind of evolved into maybe, that commitment for weight loss, and now kind of like, what does it mean to you now?
Yeah. So I kind of two answers to that. So one around the races, the first race that I ran, it was like right around 200 days, and it was a smaller race, and I placed in my age group, and I felt like I never dreamed that would happen. Yeah. And two, I feel like that was like, oh, this is possible. Like I can do this. And so I think that helped give me the push. So I definitely have run, quite a few since then. So, probably like 25 or 30 races since then.
Oh, mm-hmm. Are mostly 5Ks or what sort of distance?
So I've done quite a few 5Ks. I've probably 15 5Ks, and then I've done maybe 5 or 6 half marathons, and then I've done a couple of 10Ks. Mm-hmm. I feel like those are the half marathon and the 5K are the two that I like, because the 5K I feel like I can really push myself for speed. I'm trying to break 23 minutes this year. That's my goal for my 5K time, which, considering that when I started my run streak it took me like 14 minutes to run a mile, I feel like, wow, that's crazy, right? Mm-hmm. And then the half marathon I like, just because I feel like it requires some training, and it just, that distance alone is an accomplishment. Mm-hmm. But actually today I signed up for my first full marathon this year. A friend of mine and I are going to do in September. So we'll be training through the hot summer for our first full marathon. So.
And are you planning on early morning runs for your summer training?
It's interesting because, again, like with my husband traveling, I have to be, I guess, creative in my scheduling. So, I'm sure that I will do some early morning stuff. Luckily I have a treadmill, so, I can, not that I want to run like 15 miles on a treadmill, but if I need to, I can. Mm-hmm. And then, to be honest with you, like there will be some days that I'll probably just like, hey, I need to be able to go run for 5 hours. Like I'm going to take a half day off work so I can get this done and not impact my kids on the weekend and the time that we have together, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, priorities.
It'll probably be all over the place, but I'll get it done. Yeah, and then in terms of like how the run has evolved for me, like I feel like it's gone through quite a few different iterations over the past couple of years. Like in the beginning, it really was like, I want to lose weight, so I'm going to do this cardio, and it sucks, but I'm going to get it done. And then it kind of just transitioned into like time for me to really reflect and think about the journey that I was on, not only like just with my health and my fitness, but also in life in general, right? Like I really used it as time to think about like where I've started in life and where I've gone, and, just reflection time. Mm-hmm. I've also used my runs as like, I'm going to plan ahead. Like if I'm on lunch, like it was a good way for me to step away from work, take a deep breath, kind of think about like what I needed to get done for the rest of the day or the rest of the week, and move through, from there. And then last year, like it was my escape, right? It became, this is a disaster. I'm not going to use any cuss words. I don't know how, like, your ratings on your podcast, but like I would use a cuss word if we were just chatting. And I needed that escape from everything that we were going through. And that was huge for me. It was like that therapy session to not think about anything or not worry about anything that was going on. Mm-hmm. So definitely has evolved over the years. And now, I mean, I think it just depends on the day. Like it's what I need right in the moment. If I'm busy at work and I need to take that break, if I've got too much chaos and I just want like to blast music and not think about anything, it can be that. If it's that I need some time to reflect and think about like, how do I move forward? It can be that. Like it's based on what I need each day, which I think is also really great to have as a resource in your toolkit for mental health and sanity.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point that, I've just in conversation with other people saying, I've run every day for the past 18 years. It's sometimes the first thing that they say is, I like to switch it up. Sometimes I run, sometimes I do the elliptical, sometimes I do this. So in like maybe a different perspective in their mind, they think, we're doing the same thing every day, which essentially we are running every day, but it's like a different experience every day. Like you're saying, sometimes it's a way for you to reflect. Sometimes it's a way for you to, in some ways meditate, a way for you to get out energy or stress. So it's, it's the same practice, but we use it in ways that can support the change in our life. So I think I'm a big component of that philosophy of kind of doing the same thing every day, because in comparison, we think, especially in our Western minds, we think just because we feel different every day, we should be doing something different. But where in fact we should have that kind of grounding practice that allows us to kind of do that same thing to really know how we're feeling that day. So we keep coming back to the run. It's like, okay, I'm used to this. This is part of, my daily practice, and it's a way to kind of check in with ourselves and really know what's going on in our world. So
yeah. And I think it's interesting too, like no two runs are the same.
Yeah.
There are days that I run an 8-minute mile and there are days that I run an 11-minute mile, and there's nothing wrong with either one. It's just, it's what I need in the moment. I try to listen to my body, except for on race day, and just flex, like, how am I feeling or what do I have in me today? Like I don't go out full blast every day. And I think that's really important too in a run streak.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's, especially in training, you're definitely not doing the same thing every day. You're not, like maybe, whereas when you first started the run streak, doing that mile, it might have been that same thing. But then, over time, progressing into obviously half marathon training, each day is going to be different. And, if you're training for your 22:59 minute. I don't want to jinx you. 5K. you're, some days are speed work or, it's kind of looks different every day. So
definitely.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, do you have any, and I guess I like to ask this question as well, what over the past almost 1,000 days, what has been kind of your biggest challenge? Did you have a day where you almost forgot? Did you have a day like where it seemed literally impossible and you squeezed it in before midnight? Or do you have any crazy stories you'd like to share?
So I guess I would say I have not ever had an issue where I'm like, oh, I didn't run, like I'm going to run out of time. I've definitely had some hangover runs. I've definitely had some I'm still drunk runs. But, nothing that ever stopped me. I think probably one of the most challenging things I ran through physically would have been after my first half marathon. So I will say, like, in hindsight, I wasn't trained appropriately. I didn't have enough mix in my training plan and enough long runs under my belt. And I was like, oh, if I can run 6, I can run 8. And if I can run 8, I can run 10. If I can run 10, I can run a half marathon, right? Like, that was my mentality. And so I actually had a soft tissue injury from my first half marathon, which would have been in October of 2019. And it was like, I finished my run. and I felt great. And then I took my shoe off right away, and I was like, oh, my foot hurts a little bit. And then, by like later that evening, I was like, my foot's really bruised. I can barely put weight on it. And then, over the next like 24 hours, I was like, what did I do to my foot? Is this a stress fracture? Is it something I need to be really concerned about? And so, I did go to a doctor just to make sure, like, obviously if it's a broken bone, I need to stop running. But she confirmed that it was a soft tissue injury, and that if I wanted to continue to run, I could, and she would support me in that, but that, she wanted me to listen to my body and be mindful so that I didn't have any other like long-term injuries or anything worse from it. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't put a shoe on because of the bruising. So I ran barefoot for a couple weeks, which was fine on my treadmill until we went camping in October. And I was like, I'm going to go run barefoot in October outside of the campground. No one said anything. It was only a mile. So, so that was probably the strangest thing that I ran through. And it was like a solid, I would say 45 days before I was like, oh, I'm back in a regular running shoe. Like I went from barefoot to kind of a minimalist style shoe. And then transitioned into, back into running shoes then after that. So it took me a little while, but, I'm glad I stuck with it. So.
Yeah. And here you are almost at 1,000 days. It's, I feel like, well, actually I did speak with a run streaker of, 20 some years who just at maybe a little, I don't know, right after 20 years, she hit, that was the first time she got injured. So it's like, and that's kind of amazing because, for me, not missing a day in 18 years, sometimes the first thing people say, oh, I guess you don't get injured. But yes, I've had basically every single running injury out there. And I think it's good to kind of learn that early on in your run streak. Just because, it's like, if you can run through this, you can run through something else. It's like, it's a way of, just still honoring your commitment, understanding how to run without hurting yourself further. But still it's always possible as well. So.
Yeah. And that was totally self-inflicted, right? Like if I had followed an actual training plan and done what I should have, I would have been stronger and not in that type of position. So that's also a lesson learned, right? Yeah. Like, what are your limits or what does it take to actually commit to something that's a longer distance like that? So I went through physical therapy after that, worked on my gait, brought some strength training in. And I think like all of those things are lessons learned. I actually have an injury right now. I'm on like a couple weeks of mile runs at this point because my neck was bothering me, which was one thing. And then, that started to get better. And then I twisted over the weekend. I twisted my foot. I was out in the yard working and I stepped right on the garden hose the wrong way and twisted my foot all the way around. And like, the first thing that comes to your mind is instantly like, oh my God, did I break my foot? Yeah. And luckily I know it's not broken, but I'm babying it for a few days to give it some time to heal. And knock on wood, we'll be fine. I'll be back up to running here in about a week because that's when my marathon training is supposed to be happening. So
yeah. And I think it's still possible so I was injured, end of October, and I was going to run Boston in that April, and I had an IT band injury. So I basically had to hold my IT band in place as I ran. I'm not sure exactly what the problem was. I saw a chiropractor, physical therapist, it was like a full-time job trying to heal this injury. But, you still have all that training, from the past 989 days under you. Yep. So it's, I think it's still possible to, I don't want to say train injured, but to be able to have that race in sight and maybe, hopefully not, but getting kind of a late start on your training plan. But,
Yeah. And you're right. Like things you said, like I've been going to the chiropractor. I know like ever since my half, I know I just tape my foot, it has to be taped since then. And that's okay. I just know that that's something that I need to do that will help prevent it from getting worse. And so that's my game plan going into this is like, I want to be committed to my training plan, but also recognize like, I have to be a little bit careful with my foot and my goals are, one, to finish the training in the race, and two, to keep my streak alive. So definitely how I'm hoping to move forward over the next 18 or 19 weeks here. So
Nice. Well, yeah, I'll be excited. We'll celebrate your Comma Day here coming up. Any other, looking ahead, you have your first marathon coming up, but looking ahead, what sort of goals do you have? You're going to achieve your 1,000 days. Do you have any sort of yearly goal you want to keep your streak, or any sort of other running goals that you know of?
So I would say keep the streak alive, run the marathon. 23-minute 5K is on that list for this year.
22:59. Yep.
22:59. Yep. And then, I broke 1,200 miles last year. And so hoping I can kind of keep the momentum and do the same thing in 2021, which I think marathon training will help that tremendously. And then other than that, my youngest son is 7, and I'm trying to get him in, just to where he enjoys running, which he doesn't go out on any training runs with me, but he, anytime that I can sign him up for like a 1 mile fun run or a kid's run, I'm trying to do that with him, just because I think that it makes it fun for him and kind of gets him that itch. He likes the competitive nature of it. And I'm hoping that I can foster a love of running in him early on. So I would say that's another goal of mine, is just to keep moving him forward in that direction and hope that he can find the itch.
Nice. What about your older son?
He likes video games. He thinks running is crazy. But I have noticed he tends to brag about my run streak more than I do. Never when I'm around, but I don't think he quite understands it, but I think he recognizes like it is probably something a little bit special. So it's fun to see that. He does not like to go to races. He does not want to come with us to races. And he says he never wants to run a race, which is also totally fine. Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe it's just that rebellious side too. So
yeah, he's a teenager now. So.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah. Well, I don't know. I have faith. He might come around.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
That's true. They always surprise us somehow.
Yep.
Nice. Well, thanks so much for chatting, Stacey. And I know you're an Indiana neighbor, so hopefully at some point we'll get together for a group run or of some sort. So yeah, we'll be in touch on the Facebook group and everything, but I appreciate your time and the interview today.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, and good luck with the podcast and kicking things off.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. So thank you for listening. That's Stacey Marsh. 11 days away from 1,000 days. And I think the big takeaway from here for listeners out there is, not only making that commitment to yourself, but honoring that commitment. And I think a run streak, meaning, a daily run of even just a measly mile, can turn into something a lot more than a weight loss journey or even just getting in 1 mile. So, it's all about taking that first step out the door and completing the mile. And I think Stacey really showed how somebody can evolve by running a mile every day. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. You can head over to my website, dailyrunwithza.com, where I'll have the rest of the podcast link, and some other things are on my website there. And please be in touch, and we look forward to our next podcast. Happy running.